Video number 11. Number 11.1. My father talked to his dead cousin and even introduced my sister who was with him. She couldn't see him, of course. Then he asked 3 women only he saw how much further they had to walk down a road. The hospital kept telling my sister he was ready to go home when he fell back on the bed and died. True story. Number 11.2. My grandmother passed away at 102 years old. Her husband Bill, my grandfather, was gassed in WW1 and died shortly after the war. I was at her bedside when she passed, and she was fairly well out of it at the time. Suddenly she sat up, eyes wide open, a big smile on her face with her arms raised toward the ceiling. She said, "Oh Bill, it's so wonderful to see you." Then she flopped back on the pillow and died. Blew me away, but she died happy, that's for sure. Number 11.3. My mother had conversations with a lot of dead relatives. They were usually right over my shoulder when I sat on the bed next to her. She mentioned them by name and sometimes had lucid conversations and sometimes just private ones I couldn't understand, but she laughed and would pause while she waited for them to answer. My mother had dementia for the last 10 years of her life. She wasn't capable of naming people towards the end of her illness, yet here she was doing it, and only people that had passed. That's what makes me believe she was truly communicating. She was always happy and calm during those moments. And yes, my mother had no fluids or food at the end, and she was so peaceful. Number 11.4. When my dad was in the hospital about a week before he died, he saw a lady with a pink shiny gown at the end of his hospital bed. He asked my husband and I if we saw her. He was excited about the visit. He also kept talking about his loved ones that had already passed. Number 11.5. 1 week before my dad passed, I went over to visit. After dinner he was sitting in his chair which was right next to his hospital bed which he refused to get into. I was sitting on the hospital bed. He began to quietly talk almost in a language I couldn't understand. I said, "Who are you talking to?" He said, "I'm talking to him," and pointed towards the fireplace. There was no one standing there. Then he said, "Your work won't mind." "Won't mind what?" "Won't mind that you're not there because your dad just died," he said. He was very religious and prayed every day. I know who he saw and who he was talking to. I will never forget that. Number 11.6. My mom, who passed away in 2006 from stage 4 cancer, saw my grandfather come in a taxicab to get her. It was so real she got out of bed to go with him, opening the door and walking outside her room. My room was right across the hallway, and I remember asking her if she was okay, and she was just saying Abby, what she called her dad. Her expression and behavior made it seem so real. I checked if she was okay as she had woken from her sleep and made sure she got back to bed okay. The next morning, she confirmed her vision and said her dad said soon. A few days later she passed. May God have her in His mercy and love always. Please subscribe, like and share with anyone that needs these comforting stories. Search for my related book on Amazon using the title of 4,000 Deathbed Vision Stories. Sincerely, Ken.